Right, I've got a question from Kay Gale on sanctity of human life.
Yes, I'm Kay Gale, I'm one of the leaders of the Lee Community Church. And I've actually got a question for you, Caroline. David Cameron recently said to the Catholic Herald that he feels that the abortion limits should be lowered from 22 weeks to 20 weeks. But at the same time, he's also said that we should abolish the consent for two doctors in the early stages, as if to make the way for abortion on demand in the early ages. But he has said that the Conservatives should vote according to their consciences and they will be given a free vote. So I'd like to know what you would vote on that issue, and if you have anything else to add within the timescale that we've been given, I'd like to know.
I do actually, it's something I feel very strongly about, so briefly I will answer that. I feel that abortion should not be made illegal because not just in my time in going out and about in Gosport, but also in other previous work that I've done with other charities, I've come across a lot of people like Graham has, where there are people who are in prostitution, in drugs, and in terrible abusive relationships, where they feel forced into having an abortion because they don't want to bring a child into the world. And I think abolishing it altogether would mean a return to the backstreet abortions and the hellish exploitation of young women that there used to be in previous decades. Having said that, as the mother of two very gorgeous little boys myself, I'm very much aware that at the 20-week limit, that is a very large bump, and it is moving an enormous amount. And personally, I would campaign very strongly to have that time limit brought much earlier forward, and to have the two doctors' approval as well.
If everybody else can comment on that as well, need to provide that approval.
Yeah, it's certainly a very controversial issue. I agree with Caroline in that I think abortion should be a question of choice because of various circumstances. I know it's a very, very tricky one for Christians, but that is my opinion. And again, I agree that when things are that advanced, it's it's perhaps too much, but clearly we've got to be guided by the authorities who debate this and consider all these things.
Yes, I think I'm along with Caroline as a father. And you see your young baby when it's born, you think, you do think, don't you? I know I cried at my first son's birth, but it is, they are wonderful little creatures, and I do think, as Liberal Democrats have always believed that you should vote for these things based upon your conscience, and I would have great difficulty in voting to raise it. I would probably vote to lower it, because I think 26 weeks is definitely way too late on. I think if you find yourself pregnant in situations like Caroline said, where you've been raped, or if you're in an abusive relationship, or if you're into drugs and you find yourself in a position where you're really not able to bring that child up, it is tragic. But I would not like to remove the right of the woman to decide. I would expect that woman to decide a darn sight earlier, to be honest. It's very difficult, very difficult. But yes, I think it should be earlier, and I think it should still be with at least a couple of doctors to actually make sure that this person knows what they're doing.
That's right.
I think this is one of the most profoundly painful issues that any nation does and should constantly consider and reconsider. It's a song that we sometimes sing, "Who can sound the depths of sorrow in the Father heart of God?" That was written in part because of the struggle that we have morally regarding the issue of the sanctity of life and the right of women to abortion. It's a tension, and it's not always a healthy tension. And a big part of the problem is that far too few people of values and principles actually are willing to get involved in the counselling and the support of often young women who struggle with this decision. Having said that, the average age of single mothers in our country is not 15, 25? It's 35. So actually, we need to get our facts straight on this. That actually the people struggling with these issues are not always people who are immature, but mature people and immature people struggling with this decision are making the most profoundly difficult and painful decision that they will ever make. At times it's possible to say, draw the line and go no further and find a solution that's an alternative to abortion. But those are very individual and they're very personal and they're very spiritual decisions that will affect the consciousness of that woman for the rest of her life, whatever decision she makes. And one of the things I think we need to encourage and raise and celebrate very highly are organisations like Cedar Oak in our own community, where very gently, very patiently and very openly they offer people the opportunity to discuss the decision without moralising, without judging, without saying this is right and that is wrong, but giving people the safe space to make the decision and hopefully to save the lives of children, because each child, able-bodied, disabled, whatever, is of equal value in the sight of God and should be equal in our sight. And we should do everything within our power and our time and our resources to protect every possible child that we can.
I was very surprised with the 35-year-olds being the highest rate of abortion this week. Britain's got the highest teenage pregnancy rate in Europe. This is a fact. And of course, choice of abortions has got to be personal, but it's also got to be counselled so that they get every bit of counselling required to make that choice of either abortion or not. Obviously, there's medical reasons why some people should be aborted, and there's other reasons why they should not be aborted. The woman herself makes her own choice, and I'm all for that, and yet she should have the counselling required.
20 weeks. It's a bit late. I think it needs to come down. But it's a bigger question than that, isn't it? It's about how we bring up our young people not to get into that situation in the first place. And yes, we have to have some sort of legislation for it. But how do you legislate for the compassion required for those who have to have an abortion for whatever reason? It's almost impossible. But we need somehow both to have the legislation which lays down the law and then have compassion. And the doctors have got to have the freedom to use that compassion on occasions. But in general, I think abortion, no, only in exceptional circumstances.